Hi everybody, Krista Cowan here with another edition of the Barefoot Genealogist. It's Friday morning here. You might be watching this on replay at a later date, but we wanted to do today's broadcast on Friday because today is a date of some significance. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But before we do, I just want to tell you a little story about my own family history. When I first started doing family history, I was really interested in tracing my ancestry back as far as it could go. And I know a lot of you approach your genealogy the same way. That idea of seeing how far you can go. As a matter of fact, anytime I tell somebody I'm a genealogist, almost always the immediate response I get from people who have never engaged in family history before is, well, how far back does your family tree go? And every once in a while I'll take the time to brag about one little strand of my family history that goes back, into the early 1600s or late 1500s. But several years ago, I kind of had an epiphany and decided that my family story was about a lot more than just the people on my pedigree chart or the people that I could trace back. I started recognizing that there were a lot more connections that could be made in my life and with the people around me if I started looking at some of the descendants of some of my ancestors. We'll talk about this probably in a later broadcast, but years ago I picked a third great grandfather. He was born in 1809, and I started tracing all of his descendants. Now, it helped that this man was the father of 19 children, and I think if I remember correctly, he had 98 grandchildren. And so by the time I got down to the current day, we're talking about over 6,800, maybe even 7,200 at last count. It's been a while since I worked on it. Descendants from this one person born 200 years ago. Now, one of the things that I learned, well, there's lots of things. Like I said, we'll talk about it at another time, but one of the things that I learned from that experience, as I started tracing some of those families down, very often I would find children who died before they reached adulthood. And it always broke my heart just a little bit to think that if I hadn't been doing this, it's very likely that nobody would have ever remembered that this child ever lived, because nobody descended from this person. They never got married, they never had children, and so the memory of them as far as an ancestor could have been totally eliminated. But because I was engaged in this descendancy research, I was able to find them and to remember them and to name them in my family records as part of our family. And that was something that had a way bigger impact on me personally than I ever expected it to. And I think about that. I think about that often now because even though I have lived to adulthood, I'm not married and I don't have children of my own. And I may not. And the reality is that I may never be somebody's ancestor. And so as important as my ancestors are to me, I want to make sure that I recognize and remember all of the relatives. I know how important I am to my mother, and so I think about all of those mothers who lost children and want to make sure that those children are remembered as having been part of that family, oftentimes a very significant part of that family. Now, I get a little emotional today, in particular because of the topic that we're going to talk about, and I tell you that story to help you maybe make that connection. In 2005, the United Nations General Assembly designated January 27th, which is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, as International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and that's today. And on this day, every member state of the United Nations has an obligation to honor the victims and survivors of Nazi-era persecution. And then they also have an obligation to develop educational programs to help prevent future genocides. This year, the Secretary General of the United Nations has designated International Holocaust Remembrance Day, the theme, as Children and the Holocaust. And I have some information here that I got off of the UN website. It says that there were 1.5 million Jewish children who perished in the Holocaust. Tens of thousands of other children were also murdered. They were children with disabilities, also Roma and Sinti children. And in his statement, the Secretary General of the UN said something that just really struck me. He said, "We will never know what these children might have contributed to the world." And that's kind of where my thoughts and feelings, clearly I'm a little emotional about this, my feelings have been as I've contemplated talking to you today. I thought it was significant enough that we have this as a topic, because so many of us understand the importance of families and the importance of our family history and of remembering and of naming every member of that family. Last May, I had the opportunity of being involved in a joint project with Ancestry.com and the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. We announced last May a partnership whereby Ancestry.com was going to, with a volunteer community, help index records held by the Holocaust Museum so that those records could be made freely available online to anybody who wanted to access them. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum holds over 170 million documents relating to victims and survivors of Nazi-era persecution. And when I think about that, it's really easy to feel helpless or overwhelmed. I did not have family that was in the Holocaust. I have no connection to it as far as I know, other than two grandfathers who served in Europe during the war. But the thought of that genocide, the thought of that persecution makes me feel a little bit helpless. And so with this relationship between Ancestry.com and the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, we've been able to, as of this week, index over 1 million records, and those records are being placed online as quickly as we can. We also have millions more that need to be indexed. And so today, those are just the two things in the few minutes that we have left that I'd like to talk to you about. Whether you feel a direct connection to this or not, I hope that you'll just stick around for a few more minutes and maybe learn about some things that you can do to help make these records accessible to people who need them, so that in particular those 1.5 plus million children can be remembered by their families. So let me just give you the website that you can go to learn more about both the records that are already available online for free and the records that still need to be made available and what you can do to help with that. The web address is worldmemoryproject.org. Again, that's worldmemoryproject.org. Here you can read some information about what we're doing. You can sign up to get email updates or newsletters from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. I would strongly recommend that you watch this video that's here. It's the story of a survivor and his search for his father and what he was able to find in the records that are held by the museum. Here you can also share this page with people in your social network to see if others want to get involved. Not everybody is interested in doing genealogy, but everybody can participate in making these records more readily available to the world through the World Memory Project. You can see here that since last May, we have had over 2,300 individuals contribute to this effort, and as I mentioned, they have keyed over 1 million records that we've received from the museum to be able to put online. When you click this Get Started button, it will take you to a landing page on Ancestry.com. If you would like to participate in the World Memory Project, you can click this Get This Software button, and it will download a small free piece of software onto your computer. You can see over here on the right-hand side just a list of a few of the collections that we are currently keying. You'll notice that most of these are from countries in Europe, obviously, but all different places. We have records from the Czech Republic and France and Poland and Ukraine. We have Romanian records. We have German records. And I'm not going to lie to you, these records are not easy. Some of them are very difficult, but I have managed to work my way through several of them, and so I'm certain that some of you can as well. I'll just give you a quick glimpse of what the keying tool looks like. Here's the keying tool. You can see this particular card is not in English, but we do provide you with detailed helps that you can read through about exactly what you're going to be keying off that, what keywords to look for, so that you can know what field to key records into. And then on a field by field basis, we provide you with additional information. We also provide you with a wiki experience where you can come and read about the documents, you can learn more, and you can interact with the community who's keying these records to get help. Like I said, it's not easy, but I can say with complete confidence that it's worth it. It does get a little emotional at times, especially as you're reading documents and keying in information about children. It tends to get a little bit emotional for me anyway, but I think the significance of what we're doing here far outweighs any discomfort I may feel or any difficulty that I may feel as I'm doing this. And I try to participate in this at least once a week, where I'm going in and keying a couple of records or image sets every week so that I can continue to contribute. Now, once those records have been keyed by the community, and right now the way that they're being keyed is we do a double blind key, and then a more experienced keyer comes in and arbitrates any differences between the two keying passes. Once those records have been keyed and processed, we place them online. From this same page, you have a search button over here. You can click that search button and it will take you to a search page for specifically the collections that we have keyed from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. You can scroll down past this search box to learn exactly which collections have already been placed online, and so you could search just one of these collections at a time by clicking on it, or you can search the entire group of collections through this specific search box. You'll notice we have a free tag on these databases. That's because we have made a promise that these databases will always be free, not just because the community has contributed their time and effort to key them, but also because of the significance and the sensitivity around these records. With that said, I would recommend also that you might go to the Holocaust Museum's website to learn more about what other records they have. And also, when we key these records, only the indexes are available because of some sensitivities and some privacy issues. Not all of the images, actually none of the images, are available online. However, if you find a record that in the index that you're interested in, you can, and we do provide links for you to go directly to the museum and order a copy of that image so that you can have it in your own family history records. So again, let me just reiterate, the way to access that, all of this, the portal to all of this is worldmemoryproject.org. Click Get Started, and that will take you to a landing page on Ancestry.com where you have the option of either participating as a keyer or searching the records. And I really hope that you'll do both. Whether you have ancestry that were victims or survivors of Nazi-era persecution or not, I think that this is a significant thing. I think that we should be involved in helping to preserve this history for the people who it does pertain to. I am just going to switch back over here to my PowerPoint and just leave you with a last few thoughts. Again, today, January 27th, is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. You can learn more about that by going to the museum's website at ushmm.org or by visiting the website for the United Nations, where you can read the statement from the Secretary General. Here in the United States, we also commemorate Days of Remembrance for the Holocaust, which is going to be April 15th through the 22nd. And if you sign up now for notifications from the World Memory Project, you can be involved in some of the keying activities that are going to occur over that week. Again, that website is worldmemoryproject.org, and there you can both search the records that have been made available by the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum and Ancestry.com, and you can contribute time and effort to making more of these records more readily accessible to those who need them. That's all I have for you today. I know this was a brief episode of the Barefoot Genealogist, but like I said, we wanted to talk about this because we felt that it was significant and important, and we hope that you'll get involved. If you have any questions, I will be on chat immediately following this. You can also reach me through our blog or through our Facebook page. I'll keep an eye out for any questions about this project in particular. Our next episode of the Barefoot Genealogist is going to be entitled, Did They Really Come Through New York? We'll be talking about passenger lists and how to better search them to find your ancestors. That will be on Monday. Usually we do our live stream broadcasts on Tuesday, but next week is Roots Tech, and so our schedule's a little off. So our live stream broadcast will be on Monday. It'll be at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 Pacific. Join us live if you would like, or as always, we archive these broadcasts and make them available on YouTube within a few hours after the presentation. In the meantime, if you have a question for me, feel free to email to ask@ancestry.com. We do read through all of those emails, and we are not able to respond to all of them individually, but we do choose those to feature in our episodes of the Barefoot Genealogist, and also Anne uses them to answer questions very specifically on our Tumblr blog. Until next time, this is Krista Cowan. Thanks so much for joining us.